Hi, and welcome to Dishing Out. I hope your buns are buttered and toasted, because today it's time for burger basics. The hamburger. For my money, I can't think of a more iconically American dish. And yet, like many iconic American dishes, the origin of the hamburger are nowhere to be found on our shores. For that, we have to go across the pond to Hamburg, Germany, where for centuries, dating back to at least the 17th century, they were making a Hamburg steak, which was nothing more than minced meat formed into a patty and seasoned usually very simply with salt, pepper, garlic, and maybe a few herbs. Flash forward a few hundred years, and lots of immigration later, and the Hamburg steak became a staple on high-end restaurant menus in port cities like New York in America. These steaks were sometimes cooked, but often not. Frequently they were smoked and served tartare style with a raw egg on top. Now, as red meat and beef became more affordable and more readily available, the Hamburg steak also started popping up with street food vendors and food carts. It didn't take long for people to realize that eating a chunk of beef is quite a bit easier when it's sandwiched between two pieces of bread. And just like that, the hamburger sandwich was born. Some 100 years later, it is now ever present on menus from fast food restaurants to high-end dining. And today, we're going to tackle what I believe are the two most common hamburger preparations today. So let's get started. This is a cow. Actually, this is a picture of a cow because I don't have a production budget for props. As we contemplate burger making, we need to discuss which types and cuts of beef are best. It is often said that the meat that is furthest from the horn and the hoof are the most tender. And while this is typically true, as the rib primal, short loin, and tenderloin are the prized and most tender cuts of meat, they can also be lacking in flavor, particularly the tenderloin region. That leaves us with the round, the chuck, the brisket, plate, and short rib area. Now we will be making two types of burgers today, a smash burger and a larger, thicker pub-style burger. For the smash burger, I prefer beef chuck. It has a nice beefy flavor, typically has 15 to 20% fat content, which is important. We'll discuss more on that in a little bit. And is relatively inexpensive. For our pub burger, we will be mixing chuck, brisket, and a bit of short rib. The other option here, which we are not going to go with, would be ground round. I personally think it has a bit more of a mineral mealy texture and just doesn't quite cook up quite as nicely as the chuck. Now you may be saying, Chris, when I go to the grocery store, I only see ground chuck and ground round and those aforementioned ground beef whatevers, mystery meats. To that I say, you're probably looking in the wrong place. If you want to make burgers with ground brisket, ground sirloin, ground short rib, all you need to do is talk to the man or woman behind the meat counter and ask them if they have any of those cuts of beef available to be ground, or you can even select one of the cuts from the case, and most grocery stores or supermarkets will be able to grind that for you. If your supermarket does not offer this service, I would advise you to seek out a local butcher shop if you want to go the route of trying and mixing different cuts of beef into your burgers. Most medium to large size cities are going to have specialty butcher stores that probably already have their own proprietary burger blends of these cuts of beef, and would also definitely be happy to grind you whatever type of meat you would like. One last note about the beef itself, and then I promise we'll start cooking. But wherever possible, I strongly recommend looking for grass-fed, grass-finished beef. If you have grain-fed or corn-fed beef, it's still going to taste fine, and cooking it properly is going to do more to enhance the flavor than, you know, any particular type of diet is going to do. But for me, beef that is raised on grass and spends its last days eating grass, which is what cows naturally would eat, just tastes more beefy. And that's of course the flavor that we're after. So that's it, enough talk, let's cook. Alright, our first burger that we're going to make today is a smash burger. Now, the name refers to the technique, the way the patties are formed and cooked, and then this is in no way intended to be a copycat recipe of any burger from a restaurant that may bear that same name. I've never actually even been there myself. I will definitely fix that problem soon, but this is how I'm going to make my smash burger. We begin with ground chuck. This is roughly 80-20. What that means is that 80% of the content is lean protein and beef, and 20% of it is fat. You don't really want to go too much higher or lower than that. That's a really sweet spot for a good juicy burger. 85-15 is okay, 75-25 maybe, but 80-20 to me is that perfect sweet spot. We're gonna take just a small little palmful of this. You really don't need or want a whole lot here because we want to press these patties out really thin. So I don't have a kitchen scale handy, shame on me, but looking at about 2 to 3 ounces of beef. We're gonna lightly form that into a ball and set it down. Do the same thing. I particularly like to make double layered smash burgers. I think since the patties themselves are so small, it really is the way to go. So I'm just going to get this formed up. You don't want to work it too much. You don't want to smash it too much. That's definitely going to happen here in a second when it goes into the pan. So there you are. That's about what size you're looking for, about the size of a golf ball. And let's talk about cooking. It is both my opinion and scientific fact that when you cook beef over 35 to 140 degrees, you forever lose certain flavor compounds and textures that otherwise are present in the beef. So if we are going to do this, and for our smash burgers we had better be sacrificing those flavor notes and textures for other amazing flavor compounds. What we are after with our smash burgers is a very thin patty with a lot of surface area. We want as much surface area as possible to achieve the maximum amount of browning and crustification that we can. What's actually happening here is the Maillard reaction. It's a chemical reaction between amino acids and reducing sugars that gives food its distinct, just yummy flavor when it's golden brown and delicious. The more of that we can put on our burger, the better. So we're going to try and get it as thin as possible. It's going to cook super fast, and here's how you do it. Smash burger production requires very few ingredients and very simple technique. We will need a heavy-duty spatula with which to smash the meat, one heavy skillet. I much prefer cast iron or carbon steel, but stainless would work in a pinch. I would stay away from non-stick. It tends to burn at really high heat. Also, when you use non-stick, it's much more difficult to get the golden brown crust that we are after. Our beef balls that we will smash. Our seasoning, I'm using a Cajun seasoning here, but plain salt and pepper would be fine. And some cheese. Okay, I admit it. That is American cheese, which technically is not even cheese. It's more of like a cheese product. Look, I love cheese. I love all types of cheese. But there's nothing that melts like American cheese, and nothing that has that ooey gooey mouthfeel, which is really what we're after. We want a warm, toasty bun, juicy, crusty beef, and then that cheese in the middle that just use American cheese. Trust me, okay? No one's gonna judge you. Well, at least I hope you won't. You want to heat your cast iron pan up over medium-high heat just until you see some wafts of smoke coming off of it. You do not need any oil. Simply take your ground beef ball and place it in the pan. That's the sound you want to hear, and now we're ready to smash. Grab our other patty. time to add a little seasoning. And these are only going to need about 2 minutes aside, and we'll be ready to eat. Once you can see liquid rising to the surface and you can clearly see the meat is cooked through on the bottom, you want to get your spatula under there and give them a flip. Alright, we can take our cheese, place it on, place one patty on top of the other. That is a clean plate, by the way. And now, we contemplate toppings. If you ask me, few greater crimes are perpetrated against great burgers than over-topping and over-dressing them. Look, we've taken a lot of care to select the right cut of beef, to cook it properly, to select the right cheese for the burger that we're after. Why do we want to go and cover up those great, delicious, clean flavors with a salad and 15 different condiments? Look, if that's how you like your burger, I'm going to tell you every week, every video, make food how you want to eat it. But to me, it's just a little bit of a crime against the burger. So I have a few rules when it comes to burger toppings. Firstly, of the 3 main condiments, mustard, ketchup, and mayo, I usually only choose 2 of them. I typically like mayo as a base coating for the bottom bun, and then I'll go with ketchup or mustard depending on if I want a little bit of a sweeter topping or a little bit more of a zip. If you really want to be a cheat, just combine them all, maybe throw a little bit of pickle relish in there, and you've got one condiment, a secret, not so secret sauce. When it comes to additional veggies, whether fresh or sauteed on top, I like them. But I think you should selectively pick 1, 2, 3 of them that work together in harmony. So again, the beef is still the star and the vegetation is just there to add some extra crunch or flavor notes. Sure, you can deck your burger out with sauteed onions, raw onions, lettuce, fresh tomatoes, fresh pickles. But at this point, you basically have a salad going on, and I think it's just better on the side of the plate than on top of the meat. Final smash burger construction includes our aforementioned buttered and toasted bun. I like to toast mine in the pan that I cooked the beef in. I feel like it picks up a little bit of that beef fat and toast nicely. I'm just going to put down a little bit of mustard and a little bit on the board. Some finely minced onions, and maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 pickles. Add our burger, and let's eat. You know, it really is amazing how just a few simple ingredients prepared with the proper technique can taste so good. That beef is juicy. The outside is just crispy and delicious. The pickles and the mustard really add a nice bite and cut through the richness of the cheese and the meat. It's just a great burger and comes together in no time at all too. So hope you'll give it a shot. So look, I get it. The smash burger, while scrumptious and satisfying, is far more likely to call to mind a drive-through than a white tablecloth dining experience. Indeed, if we want to elevate the burger, we have a few different ways we can go. There are a lot of high-end restaurants and steakhouses out there now that are serving Wagyu burgers, Kobe burgers, which may or may not even be Wagyu or Kobe beef. But some restaurants just use standard cuts of beef and then jazz it up with things like poached eggs, edible gold, poached lobster, and a whole host of other wild and crazy ingredients. I don't really think we need to do any of that to take the humble burger and make it a little bit better than it has been before. In fact, I think all we really need to do is to not treat it like a burger at all, but to treat it like a steak. To begin preparing our pub style or steakhouse style burger, whatever you'd like to call it, we begin with a blend of ground meats. I have here a mixture of 50% ground chuck, 25% ground brisket, and 25% ground short rib. I picked these cuts out and had a local butcher grind it up for me, and I've got right around a pound or just slightly over. I'm actually going to make 2 burgers with this today, so they are definitely going to be thick and very large burgers. Now I find that this is easiest to do if you have a ring mold, so that you can form the patty into the exact size that you want. Unfortunately, the only ring molds I have are a little bit too small for this. But what I do have is this really cute little saucepan that was given to me and serves absolutely no purpose other than it's just about the size of a patty that I'm looking for. So we're going to take our meat and very gently press it down into the little saucepan. You're not trying to pack this thing. It's not like you're trying to build a sandcastle. You really want the meat to basically just fill the area of the pan here. And I'll let you get a better look at it here in just a second. So as you can see here, the goal is just to have a nice round patty that just holds together. So let's see here, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit more in this corner. And pop it out. All right, let's do one more. And you'll see on the bottom here, there's still some gaps there, little holes. That indicates that we didn't smash that meat all in there. If you overwork the meat, it really changes the texture on it. So I'm gonna set these here and we'll talk about seasoning and cooking methods. Now you will note that in both our smash burger and pub style burger, we are not adding any fillers, nor are we seasoning the meat before we form the patties and are ready to cook. There are a lot of recipes out there that will encourage you to add breadcrumbs, milk, Worcestershire sauce, eggs, to incorporate salt and pepper and garlic into the minced beef well before you make the patties. There's a lot of things about that are wrong. First and foremost, that's meatloaf. It's not a hamburger. But also, particularly with the salt, if you season the burgers too soon, it can really affect the texture of the beef and kind of give it a little bit of a hammy or like a pressed meat kind of a texture. It's hard to explain. Hopefully you'll never experience it, but just wanted to point that out. Meatloaf is wonderful, but it's not a burger, so keep the breadcrumbs and eggs away. So when I said we were going to be treating our burgers more like steak, I meant that in a few different ways. See, we've definitely got some much thicker patties here, almost probably I would say about an inch thick, much like a ribeye steak or sirloin. But I'm also going to be cooking these through to about 135 degrees. Now, don't run away, okay? If you want to cook your burger to well done 165, you do you. Put as much heat as you want to your meat. But the way I see it, we trust the source of this meat. I had it ground fresh this morning actually, and it should be safe to eat, really raw, although that's kind of gross. So, rare, medium rare. I kind of like medium. I like a little firmer texture for a burger, but there's a lot of ways to cook burgers to medium rare, medium, but if we want to be absolutely certain that we're not going to overcook it, I think the best way to do it is sous vide. This is an immersion circulator, and it is used for cooking foods sous vide, or under vacuum. The way that it works is it regulates water temperature and holds it at a specific temperature for as long as you'd like. It's wonderful for cooking any kind of protein that you would like to cook to a specific doneness, and do not want the hassle of having to check the temperature every few minutes with a probe thermometer. We will be using this to cook our burgers today so that we can ensure they are cooked through to 135 degrees exactly, and that will also give me time to prep the rest of the ingredients while the burgers cook. They'll be in here for about an hour to 2 hours. You could go as much as 3 or 4, but not much more than that, or the texture of the burger will start to change a little bit. Now, for anyone who was freaked out about the fact that I was going to cook hamburgers to 135 degrees, rest assured that at that length of time, 60 minutes or more, at 135 degrees, even in the unlikely event that there was some sort of foodborne pathogen in the meat, it will be killed off and the meat will be completely safe to eat. The burgers are in the water bath. You can see the temperature is quickly coming up to the 135 degree mark that I set. I've got a little clasp there to keep the bag from falling down in there. And by the way, getting the air out of the Ziploc bag is really as easy as just sliding it down into the water. The water pushes all of the air out, and then once it's out, you seal it up, and yeah, we're all set. There's not much left here to do, but wait. After 2 hours in the water bath, our burgers have comfortably cooked through to 135 degrees, and they may not look very appetizing just yet, but we've got a solution for that. Our burgers have now come out of the sous vide. I've let them rest for about 15 minutes. Even though they were cooking at 135 degrees, we want to give them time for that temperature to stabilize a little bit. If you were to put them directly into a hot pan, you might continue to cook the inside up to 145, 50, or even higher, depending on how long we cook them. So from here, we're almost done. All we need to do is season our burgers. We're going to get them into a hot cast iron skillet for about 1 to 2 minutes aside, just to sear them, to get that beautiful crust on the outside. Once we flip them, I've got a little bit of cheese that we're going to put on top, and then we'll be almost ready to eat. Just as with our smash burgers, our cast iron pan has just begun to smoke. I did blot off all the extra moisture on top of the burgers that I could. You will not achieve that brown crust if there's tons of moisture on the top of the burger that has to boil off before the meat itself can begin to sear. So I'm just going to hit these with a generous pinch of salt. This is a lot of beef, and we have not yet seasoned it. So I'm going to get that first side with some salt and some cracked black pepper. We'll go into the pan with just a little bit of vegetable oil and some butter. And I'm going to put this top side that we just seasoned down. Give it just a tiny little press to make sure it's making really good contact with the pan. And we're just going to let that roll for about 2 minutes. Okay, it's been right at 2 minutes, so let's flip them over. Oh, that looks beautiful. I'm going to throw in just a couple of crushed cloves of garlic into that butter and oil, and just gently baste the burgers with that garlic, butter, and oil mixture. This is very much how you would cook a steak in a cast iron pan, so we're very much treating the burgers just like a steak. At this point, all we need to do is get a little cheese on there, and this is smoked Gouda. It's alright if a little bit falls off. And I'm just going to cover it with some foil, give it a little steam action, and in about 60 seconds, these will be done. 60 seconds have passed, and carefully, we're going to take that foil off and get these guys out for one final rest. For our pub burger final assembly, I have chosen the following condiments: crisp iceberg lettuce, whole grain mustard, and some deliciously sweet caramelized Spanish onions. Oh, you want to know how to make those? Okay, here. For simple sauteed onions, cut up 1 onion into quarter-sized slices, add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to a pan over medium-low heat, and slowly sweat the onions, tossing and turning them every few minutes for about 45 minutes until they are soft, caramelized, and delicious. We'll begin by putting down a nice layer of mustard on the bottom bun. I like whole grain mustard because it's not quite as vinegary and sharp as yellow mustard, and I think has a little bit more depth of flavor. Put down some iceberg on top of that. Maybe one more piece here. Our patty. There. And finally, some of those onions. I feel I would be remiss if I didn't show you guys a cross section. So I believe I have learned my lesson from last time. Let's give this guy a taste. You know, the first thing that I taste is beef, and that makes me happy, because that's what we spent all this time preparing. Those caramelized onions are so sweet, and they really work in harmony with the slightly spicy, slightly acidic mustard, and smoked Gouda has never made anything bad, so this is definitely a keeper. I know not everyone may have an immersion circulator, and in the video wrap up I'll definitely let you guys know some other ways that you could replicate this without the extra equipment, but honestly it's worth the investment. I use it all the time in the kitchen, but wow, what a great burger. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope, if nothing else, you'll take away at least these major points. First and foremost, make sure you are getting the best possible quality ground beef that you can, and select the cuts that are going to give you the flavor that you're looking for in your burger. Secondly, that Maillard reaction is key. Whether you're smashing the patty down into the skillet or you're finishing the sear off after it's been cooked low and slow, getting that brown crispy crust is the only way to ensure that you're going to have the flavor in your burger that you need. And lastly, toppings and condiments. They're awesome, but don't go crazy. You're here to have a hamburger, not a salad with a little bit of meat on it. Thanks so much for watching Dishing Out. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications for my next and upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys around. In the meantime, go make something delicious.